live from the Coachella Valley. Time for another hour of the desert scene. Art exhibitions to modernism, music festivals to live theater, big screen, little screen, and very little screen. This is the Culture Corner with Bonnie Gilgallon and Brayan Mendoza. Here's Bonnie and Brayan on iHub Radio.
And we are back on the Culture Corner. Now we're really pleased to have joining us David Cohan, who is the Board Vice President of CV Repertoire Theater. Hi, David. How are you?
Hi, Bonnie. I'm great. How are you?
Good. So I wanted to have you on, first of all, because I noticed this op-ed that you wrote the other day in the Desert Sun about how theater's making it through the pandemic, and hopefully we're all still standing. And then this alliance of desert theater. So tell us a little bit about how that all came about.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's one of those good stories that's coming out of COVID, and I hope there'll be plenty more for us. As you know, and your audience knows, the Coachella Valley is really rich in performing arts and theater companies. And when the pandemic hit, we all had to do what everybody did. We shut down, except that a lot of the performing arts world are nonprofits, and even the good times and the non-COVID times, we're always running on the edge of trying to make it and get donations and what have you. So a shutdown is really, it's an existential threat to us. It's one of those things that we were all saying, holy cow, what do we do? That everybody was figuring out. But our stages went dark. Mm-hmm. And for lack of knowing what to do, one of the things that we decided to do among ourselves, we just started talking. And we said, you know what? We need to come together as a group. We're usually friendly rivals. We're usually trying to sell tickets to our own shows and market, and we're always looking for donors and those type of things. But we said this is one of those times we have to band together. Mm-hmm. So back around May 15th, a little more than a year ago now, which is really hard to imagine that was that long ago, we decided to do what everybody was doing. We had a Zoom call. Yeah. And got a bunch of the theaters together, and we just started talking about those things that were most upfront for us. Mm-hmm. What do we do? Yeah. And in the beginning, we didn't know how long we were going to be shut down, so we started talking about things like personal protective equipment, PPE, and how are we going to run safe spaces, and what do we do with our employees, and all those kinds of things. That began as things continued, morphed into lots of other things. We talked about streaming. How do we offer what's the technology, the best technology, and who's got experience doing what? And instead of being, even friendly rivals, we became friends. Mm-hmm. We just collaborated, and we tried to share the best knowledge that we all had. We created this thing that we call the Alliance of Desert Theaters. Mm-hmm. And it's a cooperative of producing theater companies and live entertainment organizations. Here in the Valley, we actually expanded a little bit to also make it the Morongo Basin because we had interest from groups up there. Yeah. And what we decided to do was be more than just a support organization for one another. We decided that now that we're together, we're going to work to do those things that we need to, even when we come out of COVID, to take action, to advocate for the performing arts, to really nurture a vibrant performing arts community. And it's been a huge success for us, and we think it's going to pay off well into the future. Mm-hmm. As we're all now thinking about reopening. We've already done some really amazing other things. We have one big success beyond what anybody expected, which I can tell you about too. But that's what this Alliance of Desert Theaters is, what we call AODT. Mm-hmm. We have a website even. That's how professional we are. We have AODT.org. Okay. We have 16 organizations kind of locally that are part of us. We've invited everybody in. Some of them, for various reasons, decided not to be part of us to begin with, and we always want to make sure they're welcome to come back and join us. Mm-hmm. And if there are other people listening or other organizations that think they could benefit from this and we could benefit from them, we open our arms wide. We'd love any of the performing arts and live entertainment organizations to join us.
Excellent. And real quick, so we've got California Desert Chorale, Children's Playtime Productions, CV Rep, Coachella Valley Symphony, Desert Ensemble Theater, Desert Theater Works, Desert Performs, Green Room Theater Company, Nickerson Rossi Dance, North Star Theater, Palm Canyon, PS Concerts, Palm Springs Dance Project, Palm Springs Gay Men's Chorus, Palm Springs International Dance Festival, and Theater 29. So is one of the things that you've talked about I know that occasionally there are issues where not every theater group has a home base, a permanent home, a theater structure that's just theirs. And sometimes groups have to find places to perform. Is that one of the things you've talked about, is maybe sharing space with each other?
Well, yes and no. So, for instance, CV Rep, as many of your listeners will know, we're thrilled that a year ago or so we opened up in the old IMAX movie theater.
Right, a gorgeous space.
To, really state-of-the-art stage. The only one of two of what we call sprung stages in California. It's 208-seat intimate theater, beautiful. But not, as you're saying, not everybody is that lucky. Right. On the other hand, it's a curse and a blessing during a time like COVID. We had to keep it safe and operating and pay the utilities and all the expenses of doing that. So we have a place in the world to exist where other theater companies don't. We certainly are open to working as best we can, bringing other organizations and people to use the CV Rep stage when CV Rep's productions will allow for that, when we can. And I'll give you, in just a little bit, I can give you some ideas, some of the things that are going to be going on there. But then there are the other, we talked about during COVID, how do we operate safely? Some organizations were trying to think, can we do things outdoors? Because we thought... And you know what happened? The state and the local municipalities said, sorry, performing arts, you're not allowed. You could be if you're a church group, you could be if you're a Zumba class. It didn't quite make sense because we weren't talking about having 1,000 people gather. We'd be lucky if there were 50 people and we could space it up. But we weren't part of what California officially calls the blueprint for a safer economy. That gives you the ability to do something.
Right.
So some groups had some really great ideas. They wanted to use some of the parks. CV Rep wanted to use the new Cathedral City Amphitheater.
Yeah.
We had great cooperation from the cities, from people with fantastic ideas of how to do this, even some financial support, and we weren't allowed. And that was really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did was we got together as this AODT, the Alliance of Desert Theaters, and we found out that what we had done here in the Coachella Valley was going on all over California, other places, Los Angeles and all through the state. Other organizations like ours had formed just this grassroots need to embrace one another.
Yeah. And
we combined with them, and we lobbied Sacramento to pay attention to us, because everybody was doing it, and it was a little bit of the squeaky wheel. That's one of the things we're really excited about. We recently were able to have the state include live performance theaters in its blueprint for a safer economy to tell us what we need to do, how to reopen, and that gives us the ability then to make plans.
Yes.
And to figure out what it will cost and to reopen vibrantly. So that's what we're doing now. That was a big win for us, and something that we probably would not have been able to do
alone,
if we didn't have something like AODT.
So what are the parameters right now? I know things are opening up. So right now, what are the parameters for, let's say I know they're doing things at the Rancho Mirage Amphitheater. So what are the parameters right now for live performances?
Well, it's a little different for everybody, and I don't want to say that I'm the expert on everything because it's still a little wishy-washy. I would tell you that outdoors, things are allowed if they are done under – there's a whole laundry list of things that you'd have to do of how to let people in, how they can be spaced, who can sit with each other, et cetera. Right. That's going to change again, we understand, around June 15th, but we still don't have details on that. And, of course, out here in the Coachella Valley then – geez, that's just in time for us all to sit outside in 110-degree weather.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think what we're going to see is some great small programming getting started through the summer. Some educational programming, some youth programming and workshops and other things. And I can talk a little bit about what I know that some of the groups are doing. And then I think what you're really going to see is everybody opening up full bore
in the fall,
announcing their seasons in the fall. Yeah. And some of it's going to be a little bit delayed to give it a little bit safer time so you can come in and let people come in. But they'll be great. I have a feeling there's going to be an explosion of offerings.
I do too. I do too. And
performing arts.
we don't have a huge amount of time, but tell us a little bit about CV Rep and some of the summer programs and summer camps and that kind of thing that's going on at CV Rep.
Sure. Well, it's more than just CV Rep. So one of the things I want you to know that even though I'm on the board of CV Rep, we as the Alliance of Desert Theaters, I'm just the moderator. We don't actually have a hierarchy on purpose. And I promise that I'm always going to represent all of the performing arts companies equally.
Okay.
So I'll tell you a little bit about CV Rep, and then I want to make sure I tell you about a few other things that are really exciting that are going on too. So for instance, CV Rep coming up in this month, June, Thursday, June 24th. People who are classical music fans, we have a small classical music series that's going to go on this summer indoors. So the Waring International Piano Concert featuring Victor, I'm going to probably not do his last name great, Victor Shletenko.
Okay.
He's a really talented 19-year-old pianist. He's going to perform for 60 minutes on stage in a concert at CV Rep. The first thing we're doing back in the theater, 7 p.m. Tickets are $40 a piece. People can get them at our website, cvrep.org. Really exciting. Then in July, CV Rep's going to have a performance by the Palm Springs Opera Guild. In August, we'll have another classical presentation with a very talented husband and wife team called the Lazzos, featuring the music of local composer Jojo Russo. And then we're all waiting. Artistic director of CV Rep, Ron Salona, my superstar, is going to announce the CV Rep 2021-22 season shortly, and it's themed. He's got a theme for it already. And what could be a better theme? Hopes, dreams, and expectations.
Excellent.
So stay tuned for that, and of course, always available at cvrep.org. Desart Performs, artistic director Michael Shaw is going to be announcing their 2021-22 season. The only thing he's let us know so far is they're going to kick it off in October with a musical.
Okay.
So people can keep watch for that. It's going to be fun. I'm a big musical fan.
Okay.
DesartPerforms.com is their website. And then some other summer things that are going to Green Room Theater Company. They're going to have their season 13 of their Green Room Theater Company and the Coachella Shakespeare offerings. They're going to be doing A Midsummer's Night Dream as part of their teen conservatory from July 22nd to July 31st.
Excellent.
And then how fun does this sound? The Zeusification, as in Dr. Zeus, the Zeusification of Romeo and Juliet as part of their kids' conservatory is going to take place from July 22nd to July 31st.
That should be interesting. Wow.
That's going to be fun, I know.
Well, David Cohan, board VP of CV Rep, what a great idea this was, this Alliance of Desert Theaters, because, there's always strength in numbers, and when you can get more done when you band together, and I think that's fabulous. And again, if you want to find out more, the website is, where is it? I just lost it.
It's AODT.org, and I would also mention quickly, Bonnie, that all the other theater companies like Palm Canyon Theater, if you go to their website, which you can just link to from AODT.org, they've got a whole kids summer camp going on. There's lots of other things going that people don't know about. Theater 29, go check them out. I'm hungry to do things after COVID and being shut in.
Everybody is, yeah.
Yeah.
But David, thank you so very much. Thank you for your great op-ed in Desert Sun, and thank you for all your great theater work. David Cohan, Board VP of CV Rep. Thank you. All right, we'll be back with more in the Culture Corner in just a bit.
The curtain rises on local and regional arts and entertainment. From music to theater, films to fine art, it's the Culture Corner. Get connected. Call 760-544-TALK. That's 760-544-8255. Here's Bonnie and Brian on iHub Radio.
In this segment, we're going to go ahead and talk about Asian American representation in media. Now, last month was Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, in which we discuss, and maybe not enough. I think we should discuss these issues all year, personally for me. But I think that last month there has been a lot of conversations about representation, And there was one study that came out that a third of lead Asian American Pacific Islander roles in the top grossing movies were played by one person, and that is The Rock.
Interesting.
And sociologist and Nancy Wang Yoon put out a study that actually revealed that only 3.4% of the top grossing movies featured Asian American or Pacific Islander leads over the span of 13 years. And she felt that when you look at 44 films that had a Asian American or Pacific Islander in any lead role front and center, 14 of them were played by Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, who is of Samoan descent. And she did this for the USC Annenberg Inclusion Initiative. And she felt, and according to this, her statement is, mainstream Hollywood isn't doing its job. I'm just so grateful that there's more independent movies, and I think the award circuits are recognizing these more authentic stories. So hopefully they will trickle down to the mainstream Hollywood, but we haven't seen that in terms of the kind of history up to this point. And it, for the most part, that when they looked into another part of the study, they found out that only 22 AAPI actors occupied lead roles compared to 336 white men who had lead roles. So that there's a lot of disproportion there. So it is a very, I'm gonna be honest, that is very disappointing that there isn't more of that, and that I know a lot of people have like The Rock and all that, but I think that you'll start to notice why I never realized that he does play that many Asian
I didn't realize
characters.
that either. Yeah.
And for me, it's like, geez, like.
I mean, I like The Rock, but yeah, there are some real Asian. I mean, there's other Asian actors out there that could do some of these roles. You know.
Certainly, and I think that there is a movie coming up right now called Shang Shu. That is a Marvel movie, a Marvel superhero movie, and it's going to be their first superhero movie with an Asian lead in it. So I'm actually kind of glad that there's at least this mindset in Hollywood of let's go ahead and include more Asian actors. But one of the lead actors from that movie, Shang Shu, Simu Liu, he actually posted on social media about he's kind of a whistleblower for the TV show Kim's Convenience, which is a show about a Asian American family that works at a convenience store. And the show itself got canceled after 5 seasons because apparently the producers did not want to continue the show past 5 seasons. And in it, Lau has said that specifically they just felt that that the producers and the writers were overwhelmingly white, and that they canceled the show essentially for a spin-off featuring the one white character, and that he said he is not interested in coming back. Even though he's happy for the actress that got the part, he did not feel like the spin-off, that the show needed to get canceled for the spin-off to exist, especially considering that it looks bad.
Yeah.
It looks bad that a show with a very strong Asian cast did not got canceled in favor of a show that has a white lead, the spin-off. And he also felt that the writers kept trying to keep everyone in a box. For example, keep them in certain Asian stereotypes instead of expanding them. So like if a character wanted to go to college or wanted to improve themselves, they couldn't because they wanted to keep them at the convenience store and keep them working there forever. Yeah. So I think it tells you a lot about television, that they're not taking enough risks and they're trying to sort of put on this image of diversity without actually taking real risks. But I wanted to get some of your thoughts on these stories.
Well, I think, Hollywood, the movie and TV industry is way behind, I think, of course, we've talked about this before. Live theater is much more progressive as far as, diverse casting and all that kind of stuff. But, it's moving very slowly. It's moving too slowly. And I applaud the actors, producers, directors who keep pushing and fighting for more diverse more shows with real Asian actors and people other than The Rock to do some of these. Yeah, it's important. I mean, theater, movies, television, entertainment, theater really, it's supposed to show us the human experience and sort of reflect back to us. And the reality of the human experience is we're very diverse. There's all kinds of races out there, all kinds of so it should show all of us. Yeah.
And also, I also kind of want to have anyone consider the fact that what would you do if, let's say, you saw yourself, let's say, the same white actor playing the same roles over and over again. So
annoying, highly annoying.
You would so imagine that for an Asian person watching The Rock all the time. Even though we love The Rock, we love him, we just feel like
give somebody else a chance. Come on.
Give them an opportunity. But hey, we have a guest coming on.
Yeah, Mary Ann Haplin, wonderful photographer. I'm going to have a shoot with her later on, a couple weeks from now. But anyway, we'll be back with Mary Ann Haplin in just a moment on the Culture Corner.
You're listening to Bonnie Gilgallon and Brayan Mendoza, talking arts and entertainment on iHub Radio's The Culture Corner. Live from the desert cities of Southern California, here's Brayan and Bonnie.
And we're back on the Culture Corner, and now we're joined by Mary Ann Haplin, who I am very excited to say I'm going to be doing. She's a wonderful photographer, and I'm going to be doing a photo shoot with her in a few weeks. She's from L.A., and she's moved here, I think, a year or so ago. Hi, Mary Ann. How are you?
I'm good, Bonnie. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So I first became aware of you because I kept seeing things on Facebook. My friend Hope Diamond and some other singer friends of mine had all these great pictures and the photography. Mary Ann Haplin. I said, wow, I need to call this woman. I need some new pictures. So tell us a little bit about how you started. You're from LA originally?
Well, no, I'm from Chicago, but I was raised out there. We moved out when I was 5. But I got into photography a little bit later. I was 35. I started as an actress, singer, and dancer in L.A.
Okay. And
so I always did photography as a hobby. And then, back when it was film. So I started thinking, well, maybe I should make a business of this. And I said all to my actor friends, I said, listen, I'll do your headshots if you pay for my film and processing. And that's how it started. And then I had, all of a sudden, within 6 months, I was photographing television stars and movie stars. And I just kind of evolved really, really fast. So
you must have you must have just had a really natural eye. Did you know that initially? I'm a storyteller, and I think that really good photography, especially portrait photography, you have to tell a story. It's like it's not just taking a picture; it's about what's that person saying. Yeah,
and if you cover everything, if you look at a magazine and you cover the whole thing except for their eyes, you can tell exactly what they're thinking. And so I think the acting really helped me because I photograph people like I would like to be photographed.
Yeah.
And I do, actors and singers and musicians and entrepreneurs, and I do families and pregnant women, and I do all people things. And so I always start my session, before people even arrive, I say, what is your vision? What do you want this picture to say for you? And that is really important, I think, because, there are a lot of photographers that are really good, but they don't, it's capturing the essence of the person, and that's what I love to do.
Yeah. So did you find the photography took off so quickly and so fast? Did that kind of pushed your performing career to the background because you were just doing so well as a photographer?
I had an aha moment. I was in William Morris agency because the head of the television department called me in because he loved what I was doing for a couple of his starlets. And I thought, well, I'll pitch myself as an actress. Well, he did not want to know anything about that. He kept going back, well, how did you do this lighting? And I really like this. And I had that moment of going, well, they really love me as a photographer, and they really don't care for me as an actress. And I thought, I should get on the horse called photography and get off. It's like you don't want to beat a dead horse.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I got on this horse called photography, and I just I was so fortunate. I love it so much. I mean, after 30 some years, I still love it.
Yeah.
It's like, you'll see, I get so energetic.
Yeah.
Because I just I create in the moment. And I'll say, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
And it's fun because I love what I call doing visual branding.
Yes.
So especially for singers and entrepreneurs. And so people can look at them and they go, oh, I know what kind of singer they are. Because of, some people have a really wild style and some people have a much more calm and introspective style. And so I try to capture that, not just say smile.
Right. Exactly.
It really doesn't say anything.
Yeah. Do you have any regrets at all about the going down this sort of different path?
Well, not really. It's funny you should say that. My husband and I, a couple of years ago, we got contacted because I know so many agents and managers in LA. We got contacted by a manager that said, "You and Joe have such a great look," and we let our hair go salt and pepper, and she says, "I need an older couple." I go, "Great, thanks. We're going to go out for all medication stuff I can see." Yeah. So I said, "Well, you know what? Why don't we do that? Just commercials. We'll give it a go." And so we did. In between me doing photography, and we worked a lot.
Wow.
And I did a lot of print work, and I always say I'm a supermodel for medication. So it was fun, and now I mean, really, I just. My love is photography, and I really love focusing on that.
So let's talk about, you've done big stars, you've done album covers, and also I love this book. Tell us about this book, Fearless Women, Fearless Wisdom. You had Erin Brockovich and a number. Tell us about that.
Well, I started in the 90s doing a book of pregnant portraits, and it was sort of after the Demi Moore cover on Vanity Fair.
Right.
And I really didn't do it because of that. It just sort of dropped in my lap. I was doing a figure study. I was so upset about what Hollywood was doing to young actresses, making them, with a lot of eating disorders.
Yeah.
So I started doing a figure study of all different sizes, and the first woman that came to me was pregnant. And I went, wow. And I didn't have any children, and I probably wasn't going to. I just was one of those things, But I really was fascinated about what the woman's body was about. So I did that book. It was called Pregnant Goddesshood, A Celebration of Life. And it really, believe it or not, it was very controversial. It ended up on The View and Inside Edition. I became this expert in pregnancy, which was weird because I was never pregnant.
Yeah.
And then from there, I met two authors, and we decided to collaborate and do a book called Fearless Women, Midlife Portraits, all about fearless aging. And the through line was women holding swords. So I did that. Was the last book I ever did with film, medium format, all in black and white. So I was fortunate to photograph people like Erin Brockovich and Joni Mitchell and Joan London and Linda Gray and all of these wonderful women that were really doing incredible work in the world. Yeah. And then from there I did a book of entrepreneurs called Fearless Women, Fearless Wisdom, was moving through their fear to their wisdom. And then the latest book, which I will give you, is called Fearless Women, Visions of a New World. And that was, I had a vision in 2012 that we were really going into a very dark place.
Wow.
And I just felt compelled to photograph women wearing white on a white background, holding the sword, and talking about what their vision was for a new and better world. And it kind of came inspired by what the Dalai Lama said at the Vancouver Peace Conference in 2008. He declared that the world would be saved by the Western women.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I I think the world will be saved by all the women in the world. You know, women are stepping up. People, you know, like Erin Brockovich, and who's, you know, her campaign. I just had a conversation with her a few months ago, and she's actually gonna come down to Palm Springs one of these days. We're gonna do new pictures and things. But she was just really saying how all of us. She has a new book out that talks about steps of, you know, saving the water, that all of us need to really be active to save the water because it's all getting polluted.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, there are just some extraordinary women that are doing really extraordinary things. And I was really fortunate to photograph many of them.
Yeah.
In all 4 of my books.
And your website, by the way, is www.maryann, it's MARYANN, Halpin, HALPIN.com. So
correct.
What's next on your bucket list? I mean, big project. Do you have some other photography books in the back of your mind percolating?
No, I actually, my agent, I during the pandemic, I just, you know, we all went through so much stuff, and I went through a lot of darkness of feeling really isolated, but what came out of it was lots of poetry. And so I'm working on a book that she wants me to do called Pandemic Poetry from the Soul.
Oh, I love that.
And it's really all about my journey, which I think is probably going to be about a lot of people's journey through the pandemic.
Yeah.
Really appreciate, like, one is about appreciating my friends.
Yes.
And how sad I was I couldn't hug them.
I think we all felt that, learned that, yes, in this time.
Yeah, and so, and then a lot of, you know, like a recent poem I wrote was about stepping into the new world and the fear I had about, you know, being out there, and would I break into tears in front of somebody? Would they turn away? And you know what I mean? It was like really, it's real raw stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm going to probably do some photographs to go along with the poetry. So that's the only photography I'll do. But honestly, being in Palm Springs now, I just feel like I'm on vacation all the time.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those kind of towns. Yeah.
It is so cool. And not cool, I mean, not in the sense of...
Cool in the fascinating, fun sense. Yeah.
Yes.
So would you say if you were going to give advice to some young photographer coming up, I like what you said before. Would your best advice be tell a story, tell the story? Is that
tell a story? It's like I think with any creative, why do you want to do this? Yeah. Find a point of view. You know, if you're looking, like I was fortunate a few years ago, I got to go with a nonprofit to Peru, and I got all donated cameras, and we spent 10 days at an orphanage. And in broken Spanish, I taught the kids how to look through a camera lens. And said, how do you see this? What are you looking at? Look at the whole frame. There are different things in that frame. You know, look at, you know, tilt the camera different ways. You know, really look. You know, I'd show them how to cover one eye and just look through your hands so that they could see.
I bet that was a great experience for them and for you. It sounds like
it was incredible. We took them to Machu Picchu, which was it's like the last one to climb up because there's no air, and but it was wonderful. Well, Mary Ann Haplin, I'm so excited that I'm going to be working with you in a few weeks to get some great photos. I'm excited too. To see her work and find out more about Mary Ann, you want to go to her website, www.maryann.com. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to get to know you and to work with you in a couple weeks. Thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it. Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. All right. Have a super day. We'll be back with more on the Culture Corner right after this.
You're listening to Bonnie Gilgallon and Brayan Mendoza, talking arts and entertainment on iHub Radio's The Culture Corner. Here are Bonnie and Brayan.
And today in this segment, we're going to talk about today in pop culture history.
We need to get a little music thing, dun dun dun, some kind of music thing for that. Okay.
We need. You know what? I was thinking something like the All My Children theme that goes
Something like that. Yeah, we'll have to come up with a theme.
So on June 2nd June 2nd in 1939, Superman's first solo comic book came out.
Wow.
So Superman was not the first time he showed up. He showed up in the Action Comics #1, and later on they decided to make Superman his own comic book because it turns out that a lot of people really like Superman, and it stuck with people. And obviously, well, Superman's been around forever, so obviously there's that. And then a couple decades later, I think about 50 decades later, Dead Poets Society opened in theaters in 1989.
Wow.
Did you ever see that movie?
I did. It was a great movie. And you know what's kind of creepy about that, or I know it's just sad maybe, is you remember that, what was the actor's name?
Robin Williams?
No. The young kid that commits suicide because his father doesn't want him to be an actor. Sean Robert, it's three names. I forget his name. He commits suicide but that's just kind of weird to me that in the movie that actor's characters, he's a college kid and his father's completely against him being an actor, and ends up shooting himself. And then fast forward decades, Robin Williams commits suicide. It's just kind of sad.
And it's also an interesting parallel. I do want to point out another parallel.
Robert
Sean Leonard.
Okay, I knew it was three names. Okay.
Neil Perry in that movie. Yeah. It's because if we do a reverse, George Reeves, who played Superman, himself. So it's very interesting that Superman and Dead Poets Society.
Yeah. It was a very well done movie. I liked that movie a lot. Yeah.
You know what? I actually would say that I watched Dead Poets Society multiple times, and it took a while for me to really appreciate it because at first I kind of took it as, oh, well, Roger Ebert's right. It's cheesy. And then later on I said to myself, you know what? No, this actually speaks to me because because I'm an English major. So for me, it's like, yes, you're correct, Robin Williams. That poetry does speak to you.
Yeah,
like that.
I never thought it was cheesy. I always liked it. Yeah.
And that was one of the few times where I've actually been pretty honest about me being wrong about the first time I saw a movie like that. I was wrong about that movie, and so I love it. I watch it now, and I think it's great. And then on June 3rd, 1965, an American walks in space. Major Edward H. White II stepped out of the Gemini 4 capsule to become the first American astronaut to walk in space. He was attached to a thing, but
hey, that's still a pretty big milestone. Yeah,
I agree. And it was like 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and apparently he didn't even break a sweat, and that even though he was but if you want to know, the first person to walk in space was Alexei Leonov, a Soviet astronaut. He did so that same year, but on March 18th. So our first American to walk in space. And it's very interesting because we forget that a lot of the Soviet I always like to believe the Soviet won the space war because of the fact that, well, they did everything and except go to the moon. But also in 1956 on June 3rd, most people don't remember this, but in Santa Cruz they banned rock music.
Wow.
Remember that they did a total ban at rock and roll music at public gatherings because it was considered detrimental to both the health and morals of our community. And 2 weeks later, there was more bans in Ashbury Park, New Jersey, and San Antonio, Texas. So in Santa Cruz, California, there was this...
That was the first one in the country? Interesting.
Yes, and what happened was that it got instigated because there were 200 teenagers who went to a party, and there was rock and roll music, and they felt like there was too much... tantalizing motions and suggestive physical
dancing and stuff.
Yes, and also because
scandalous,
and also because racism, because they also the lieutenant also said that they were dancing to all black music, so of course there's that too, which is, you know, I think we forget about that.
Yeah.
And then June 4th, in 1917, the first Pulitzer Prizes are given out.
What year was that?
1917.
Okay.
And then in 1937, on June 4th, shoppers use a shopping cart for the first time.
What year was that?
1937.
Wow. Okay.
We forget that the shopping cart was not invented until 1937, and they were introduced at the Humpty Dumpty supermarket in Oklahoma City.
Humpty Dumpty, I love it.
And also June 4th is also National Secretary's Day. So if you've ever been if you're a secretary right now, take a break. Take a break right now.
I've done back in the day. I did secretarial work, reception, all that stuff.
I think technically sometimes here at the station I do secretary work, but we'll talk about I think
we'll just call it something else. We'll call it administrative. Sounds better.
See, that could work. I like that. Or assistant. I've actually saw a bunch of movies. I noticed a lot of movies in the 80s, like Working Girl. They have like this idea of like taking the word secretary away and putting assistant. Mm-hmm. And I'm almost like, you know what? Just reclaim secretary. It's a great word. I like the way it sounds.
Well, it's really a noble profession, and it's a lot of work. A lot of work. Yeah.
I agree. And also tomorrow, being June 5th, Uncle Tom's Cabin serial story is published in the newspaper. So Harriet Beecher Stowe's famous anti-slavery book.
What year was that?
1851.
Okay.
So it actually lasted as a 40-week serial, which means that every week there was a new chapter, and that was the first time it was published. Mm-hmm. And then 1956, another rock and roll story. Elvis Presley showed up on the Milton Berle show on NBC. Oh, I don't even...
Was that his first television appearance on Milton Berle?
I think it was one of his first appearances because he was actually on the stage show. He showed up on CBS's stage show, and then he showed up again on the Milton Berle show where he did Hound Dog, and he showed off his grinding skills.
I think the one people think of is the Ed Sullivan, when he was on Ed Sullivan, that was like the big, but maybe it wasn't his actual first TV appearance.
Yeah. But the thing is, Ed Sullivan introduced him later on September 9th, but Elvis Presley did show up to do like Hound Dog on there. Okay. And some critics said that he had no singing ability, and he was called Elvis the Pelvis.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. I remember that phrase. Yeah. Yeah.
And then finally, 1983, Cats the Musical won Best Musical at the Tony. So we can keep laughing at Cats, but apparently
it did well. Yeah,
it did well enough.
All right, thank you to everybody. Thank you, Mary Ann Haplin and David Cohan and Brian. Great show. All right, everybody, stay safe. Get vaccinated. We'll see you next week.